Peace, my peaceful people. What's good? It's your brother, man. Say I know. What's poppin'? Alright, so we back. And of course I'm smiling because I'm looking at y'all. You know how that go. Okay, so we back. We are back for our next installment of I Ching, into the I Ching, right? Something like that. And so, so our next hexagram is hexagram 16. This is a doozy. One of my favorite hexagrams, if I should have such a thing. So I ain't going to spend too much time on that. Let's get into it. Got my whole maze. Alright, here we go. Alright, so all old games, dice, dominoes, that have all Mercury retrograde. Alright, okay, here we go. All old games, dice, dominoes that we have learned as Chinese Divination Systems, right? Kin meaning the trigram kin. Divination systems, cards in various forms, all such games that you have learned with relationships and symbols, etc., are really oracles. While the Western man, being a child, will use dominoes and cards and mahjong for games only, when originally the system was designed for consultation as a means of consulting an oracle. The mahjong is an ancient Chinese divination system. As we go along, we will be introduced to more and more various forms of divination. Right now, the highest forms of oracles come from Africa. When an African oracle speaks, not only does it identify a situation, it gives advice as to how to deal with it. It also shows you how to find the power, meaning the ritual, to the deities and the mantras to realize your objective. Other oracles, if it is a good oracle, like most Chinese oracles, identify the situation and then give you counsel. But they do not give you the keys to the power itself of how to realize that counsel. Nevertheless, these oracles are still very good. I Ching, mahjong, and other oracles called the Golden Oracle, which is based upon the five-element theory of Chinese philosophy, are very good. Tonight, when we discuss the hexagrams, you will see the importance of complementing your hexagrams. What we mean by complementing is that whenever you get the hexagram, you should always study the complementary of those hexagrams that are your answer. Let's say you get a reading of 58 into the 61. You should also study the complements of 58, which is 52, and the complement of 61. The difference is emphasis, meaning that 58 into 61 means that I will emphasize the meaning of 58 and 61 as pertaining to my question. The complementaries are simply to help me comprehend, meaning that I will understand men best by studying men and women. You understand the function of the sympathetic best by studying the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, because the two are halves of one whole. So hexagram 16 and 9 are complementaries that we are speaking about today. The 16th, so y'all get that, right? Talking about the best way to bring understanding to your I Ching readings is by studying the complementaries of the hexagrams, right, that you're dealing with. Okay, the 16 is a very problematical situation, very deep. You are beginning to see that each hexagram is a deep philosophy. Each hexagram corresponds to the depth aspects of life. And unfortunately, our authors, Wilhelm, etc., have merely scratched the surface. Once again, I want to impress you with the beauty of using the I Ching. Once you have the proper revelations on readings, you find that a seemingly trivial situation turns out to be a focal point to teach you a very deep lesson in the philosophy of life. If you pursue the matter to the very end, to the very depth, each hexagram will turn a simple situation into an instruction piece as to several of the most profound forces at work in life in general. Retrograde, boy, I tell you. This is one of the very important things of the oracles. The Western man has given us the impression that the oracles are fortune-telling devices. The oracles do not tell fortunes. They do not tell misfortunes. The oracles identify situations. They do not predict the outcome of things. Of course, the oracle may say, well, because you have already taken several steps into something that you are not prepared for, you eventually are going to fail. but basically, the oracles, in terms of predicting, it simply gives you the situations. The oracles say to you that you are going to encounter such difficulties in life. Now, whether you fail or succeed, this is the counsel to fail or succeed. Okay? It allows you room to manipulate, to maneuver the situation so that you can learn the greatest lessons of life from seemingly trivial, superficial situations. Not only through instruction, but then seeing that instruction reveal itself in the situation as it plays out. As you act it through, or I should say, as you act through it. I just became dyslexic, y'all. I'm telling you. Maybe I should have waited to do this. No, we're not waiting. Let's do it. All right. The oracle, an oracle such as your African oracles, will give you depth insight and an even deeper insight if you do your rituals. Because there are those who have this false idea. You say that if an oracle has 264 symbols, that oracle speaks more than the oracle that has 16 symbols. But that is not necessarily true. If an oracle has 4 symbols or 16 symbols, but tells you the deity in charge of the situation, and you possess that deity, then that deity will reveal to you while you are in trance or while you are in post-trance in dreams. That deity will reveal to you the same information and even much deeper information than the I Ching would. Because now the deity is speaking to you. Many of you know that following the rituals for the next couple of days or so, you have some very powerful, significant dreams that tie right into the ritual you did. And the ritual was prescribed by the oracles. I want you to understand that. People who do not work with something deeply enough, especially the African approach to life, can never begin to understand the depths of things. The depths of things. But besides the depth information, the African oracles gives you the keys to the powers that enable you to change life. Yeah, man, that's deep. Right? See, this is why I mess with oracles. You know what I mean? Because I need to know more. You know what I mean? I just need to know more about stuff. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm telling you, I've been since I was 4 years old. I was 4 years old. Probably one of the earliest cognizant thoughts that I had was, and I was like, you know, talking to God. I don't know. I just figured I could talk to God. I said, God. I said, one day, I want to be able to sit down and ask you everything that I want to ask. I said, I want to know stuff. I said, this was my thought. I was 4. I said, I want to one day be able to sit down and ask you everything that I could think to ask. And the reason I said that is because I knew it was possible. About that. All right, anyway. You know, and that's funny. It reminds me of an argument that I had with the preacher man at 12, where, you know, we ended the argument at, well, son, there's just some things about life that God don't want you to know. You know, that was my end of my relationship with that particular religion. Yeah, I was 12. Yeah, real stuff. All right. let us move on. I don't know why that's significant as we talk about the 16th hexagram. Anyway, the strong line in the 4th place, that of the leading official, meets with response and obedience from all the other lines, which are all weak. So here we have a yang line in the 4th place, in the place of the minister. This is the man who advises the king, who advises the king. This is the man with the religious teachings, the minister. Here is a religious leader, philosophical leadership, ritualistic leadership. Enthusiasm is an energy. Okay. All right. So, when people talk, they say certain things with their hands and their eyes, and they emphasize certain things, and it's like you get it lots of times from the gestures that they're making as they speak. You know what I mean? So here I'm reading somebody speaking, and it just like you kind of like, how did that sentence connect to the last sentence? You know what I'm saying? You gotta use your imagination a little bit. He was probably like, with the leadership, ritualistic leadership, enthusiasm is an energy. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. I don't know. I wasn't there, but All right. Back to the script. Here we go. The attribute of the upper trigram, chin, is movement or motivation. Those energies that motivate you to act, those energies within you, fear, anger, joy, etc., are manifestations of the Kundalini energy of divine forces within your being. The attributes of Kun, the lower, are devotion and therefore inspires enthusiasm, carrying all with it. Of great importance, furthermore, is the law of movement along the line of least resistance, which in this hexagram is enunciated as the law for natural events and for human life. All right? Okay? All right, so this is the text that we were dealing with. Okay, back to Shepherd. This hexagram deals with achieving things through the principle of least resistance, which is enthusiasm. Meaning that when people are enthused about something, they do not offer resistance. So oftentimes, when you get this hexagram, according to the stress line, the oracle is saying to you that there is no enthusiasm here. Well, that enthusiasm needs to be created here. Something like that. Right? That is the kind of force and energy that you need to accomplish your project. It is not there. All right? That is the kind of force and energy that you need to accomplish your project, and it is not there. Okay, here we go. Your persons are cold about what you want to do. Or that line might be stressed saying, yes, it is here. But the most devastatingly significant part about this hexagram is that where the enthusiasm is not there, yet the oracle suggests that enthusiasm can be awakened. Okay. Yeah. All right, I've said this before. Keep in mind, somebody's speaking, I'm talking, I'm reading somebody's speech. Okay, and steps ought to be taken until the enthusiasm is awakened. Now, after the enthusiasm is there, then you are moving along the lines of least resistance. Let's find out how. The judgment, enthusiasm. I've highlighted it. It furthers one to install helpers and set armies marching. And in the parentheses I put, summon the deities for help. Right? Back to the text. The time of enthusiasm derives from the fact that there is at hand an eminent man. Back to Shekel. That is the 4th line, the minister, the sage. I know the sage to be the 6th line, but I guess this goes back to the 15th hexagram where Shechem was talking about meditate, right? Meditate on the difference that you see, something like that. All right, let me not get off in that. Okay, so... Right, 4th line of minister, the sage. Okay, speaking about a relationship. Okay, maybe philosophical understanding, right? Minister is similar to a sage. All right, anyway, let me keep going. Who is, back to the text, who is in sympathy with the spirit of the people and acts in accord with it. Back to Shepherd. That should be qualified to state that when the spirit of the people is in harmony with what is right. If this was not misstated, you simply believe that eminent men, or eminent man, that the eminent man, the sage, caters to the conditioning of the masses. If most people want to do something that is wrong, the sage will not go along with it. Okay, back to the text. Hence, he finds universal and willing obedience. To arouse enthusiasm, it is necessary for a man to adjust himself and his ordinances to the character of those whom he has to lead. Right? Yeah. Let's take that into consideration. It doesn't mean that we must cater to the desires of people. This is Shechem talking now. But his ordinance must be adjusted to the character of the people. Do not try to get people to respond to something beyond their spiritual level of development or outside their rational ethnic character. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the thing itself. Pardon me. Because the thing itself, it may be banal. I think that's like kind of downplayed, like of no real importance. Okay. Back to the text. The inviolability of natural laws rest on this principle, movement along the line of least resistance. Back to Shepherd. But don't forget that natural is a Latin word that comes from the Kemet Netzeru, which are deities. Netzeru means deities. Neter, the singular, means the deity, the God. Neter is the one supreme being. So what this is saying is that you cannot oppose those deities that you are working with in the spirit of the people. Okay? Run it back. This is saying that you cannot oppose the deities that are at work within the spirit of the people. The right kind of natural forces or motivating power is not there, so you are going to have to create them. The hexagram tells you, hold it before you try to do something. Whatever you are trying to do, remember that you need an inner motive force, and you must be in harmony with this inner motive force. Then it goes on to say, back to the text, this is why, or that is why, the celestial bodies do not deviate from their orbits, and why all events in nature occur in with fixed regularity. Back to Shepherd. If the moon came a little closer to the earth, you'd have tidal waves and storms all over the earth. It would make the day after look like a little rainstorm. The moon must keep its proper place. The earth must keep its proper place. All the planets must keep their proper place. As a matter of fact, there is a mathematician by the name of Boogs that discovered a 4-to-1 ratio that repeats itself between the planets with each other and the sun. From the sun up to Saturn. That is something to think about. Sun up to Saturn. Interesting, right? Because we know that the last three, right? Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto are not actually of this solar system. They're just nearby neighbors. So that's why we got 7 days a week. If we had, 10 planets, right? The 7, right? Including the sun and the moon. If we had those 7, and then we had 3 more, I guess we would have 10-day weeks, right? 10 weekdays, right? And, when you think about astrology, right, you have, they tried to give Scorpio to Pluto and, Aquarius to Uranus and stuff like that. No. Everything's perfect the way it is. Each planet has two, except for the sun and the moon, right? So you got, Mercury has Virgo and Gemini, right? Venus has Libra and Taurus, right? Mars has Scorpio and Aries, right? And then you have Saturn, right? No, Jupiter. Jupiter has Sagittarius and Pisces, right? Then you have Saturn, who has Aquarius and Capricorn, right? And then you have Leo, the sun, and you have Cancer, the moon. So that's perfect. Let's not mess that up. Let's not mess that up. See, I'm telling you, you gotta keep your eye on things, man, because society will try and take you off vision, try and take you off truth. Like there's reasons why certain people don't want you to be on truth, because you can then be able to see through them, right? Everybody don't want you looking at them, right? That's why they told you this and that was wrong about certain religions. You know what I'm saying? I'm going way off on the tangent. But yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. All right, running back, where we at? So with the author, it is the same in society. When the author is saying, right, to the text, it is the same with human society. Back to Shekel. What the author is saying here is that the same laws that keep the celestial bodies fixed in their paths are at work in human societies. This is very devastatingly insightful when you put your finger on the details of what is behind that general pronouncement. That the same laws that keep the planets in their orbits are at work in human society. We are just not speaking about astrology. Only such laws that are rooted in popular sentiment can be enforced, this is the text. While violating this sentiment merely arouses resentment. Back to Shekel. Again, we are not talking about catering to the popular beliefs or desires, meaning if it is not there, you are going to have to take your time and inculcate it, the proper netzeru, into the people. Back to the text. Again, it is enthusiasm that enables us to install helpers for the completion of undertakings without fear or secret opposition. Back to Shekel. That is fantastic insight for group work. Back to the text. It is enthusiasm, too, that can unify mass movements, as in war, so that they achieve victory. Back to Shekel. Remember the GI in Vietnam? Apathetic, indifferent, unenthused. Failure was written all over the face of each soldier. The image, thunder, comes resounding out of the earth. Now you have never seen thunder come up out of the earth. This thunder that comes up out of the earth is the Kundalini power. This is the divine force, Kundalini, the upper trigram chin, that which motivates you to do something. All those impulses that you experience within your spirit as your desire to do this, and the emotion for that, and the appetite for so-and-so, all these things pushes you towards doing something or away from doing something, is that thunder that comes from the earth. I want you to understand that symbolism. It is very universal symbolism. It is a very universal symbolism, and it is very deep and profound, and is used in many key areas of occult information, and you must know it because it is different from heavenly thunder. That heavenly thunder is the one that destroys ignorance in a very cataclysmic way. All right. Those are those very sharp conflicts that you encounter that very quickly turns your life upside down. That is heavenly thunder that has struck you. It is different from earthly thunder. Back to the text. Thunder comes resounding out of the earth, the image of enthusiasm. Back to Shekel. Those great emotional passions to do something. Alright? Yes. That's deep. This is a lot of the crux of what the 16 is all about. It's about invoking that passion to do something. Right? It could be already in you and just needs to be stirred. It could be sometimes that you need to be reminded or remind yourself of this by doing the things that get you hype or doing the things that get that spirit in you, right? Rituals, your meditations, your, affirmations, right? Your rituals, right? Thus, the ancient kings made mantras, hekal, and chants, right? Back to Shekel. Not just music. This is the chants with words of power. Meaning that if enthusiasm was not there, then the ancient kings, who were the priests, call forth the thunder out of the bowels of the earth that resides within the earth, was called forth with that resides, or that which resides within your earth, was called forth with mantras, the hekal music. Music tames the savage beast, right? Now we understand why, right? This is working on something inside us, that resounding thunder in there. That's why music can make you do all kinds of things and go to all kinds of places within your vibration, right? Music can change your vibration. Very important. So you have churches that outlaw music inside the church. What's that? What's that? When the church says, we don't want you singing, we don't want you getting up and doing your thing and getting your kundalini going, we don't want that. What's that? Gotta consider that stuff, man. When you know this stuff, right? If you know that, music tames the savage beast, right? Or hypes up the savage beast, right? Or you know that when you put that song on, you feel like exercising, right? I was just playing some Dead Prez this morning. Man, so I'm talking about, that's what you play to work out. That's workout music right there. That's revolution music. Like, you get hyped when you throw some Dead Prez on. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Because, yeah, that's what it's about. Music moves that spirit. All right. Back to the text. In order to honor merit, and offered it with the splendor of the supreme deity, inviting their ancestors to be present. Okay, let me run that whole sentence back. Go back to the text. It says, thunder comes resounding out of the earth, the image of enthusiasm. Thus the ancient kings made mantras, hekals, and chants, in order to honor merit, and offered it with splendor to the supreme deity, inviting their ancestors to be present. To Shechem. It says, go when, okay, this is partly cut off, so I don't know if it says so when the ancient king wanted to accomplish great things, and you might get this hexagram just on your own private small little venture that you want to accomplish. Okay. The perils of talking someone's speech or reading someone's speech. You might even decide to go to college, for example, or decide to change jobs, and you get the 16th hexagram. The oracle is saying to you that there's not enough motivation within you. You don't know it. You think that you have enough motivation because don't forget that right now you might feel, yes, I will do it. I will carry it through. And a week or two later, a month or 2 or 3 later, that fire burnt out. It got cold and you ran into some obstruction and you gave out. So this hexagram tells you, look to the inner thunder is not strong enough. No, run it back. So this hexagram tells you, look, the inner thunder is not strong enough. The principle of motivation, that which rules you from inside, is not strong enough. Or maybe it is, and the lower trigram, kun, is not receptive. Right? You have Chen, which is like a martial fire, right? Sitting on top of kun, which is the receptive, right? So that's what we're talking about. So, it could be a conflict between your fire and your receptivity. That's what he just was talking about. That devotion and obedience to that which is moving you is not there. For you to persevere on to accomplish something by yourself or with a group of people or whatever, there must be this inner thunder, meaning the great passion. And that passion has to be able. It is like you are going to drive from here to DC, and you have gas in the car, but is it enough? That is the point. But how about the car? Is it in proper condition? Was it tuned up? Because it might eat up more gasoline, meaning a lack of receptivity. You might have a great deal of power inside, but not enough receptivity outside. So here we are saying to arouse your motivation. This is back to Shekel, same Shekel talking, right? What you call enthusiasm, and another word for this enthusiasm is faith. And you notice here that the ancient definition of faith is just not simply belief or unshakable belief. We are saying that you have to invoke the deities and invite the ancestors to be present, because you are going to need the help from the deities, the guidance of the deities, the help and the guidance of the ancestors. Because everything that you want in life is not an individual thing. There is such a thing as individuality in earth. There is no such thing as individuality in earth. That is a great myth. People will tell you that word exists, but in reality it does not exist. That's why many people fail, because they believe that there is a such thing as individuality. Another name for the human body is the boat of Sektet. The Sektet boat, right? Mercury. Another name for the human body is the Sektet boat, which we will speak about in the next class to come. And we will find out who travels in that Sektet boat. Back to the text. When at the beginning of summer, thunder, electrical energy comes rushing forth from the earth again, and the first thunderstorm refreshes nature, a prolonged state of tension is resolved. Joy and relief make themselves felt. So too, music has the power to ease tension within the heart and to loosen the grip of obscure emotions. Back to Shekel. That music, of course, is your words of power, your chants, not Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson. I guess Shekel would say, not Dead Prez. Right? This is your chants to the deity that resolve tensions and loosen the grip of obscure emotions. Meaning that it gives you the power to destroy those emotions that otherwise will hold you back. Because that is what holds you back. Emotions that are counter to what you want to do. You don't have so-called weakness of will. You have conflicting forces within you. One force says to do this, and the other force says don't do this. That is what it is. And you have to learn to set all your forces moving in the same direction. That is the point. The enthusiasm of the heart, back to the text. The enthusiasm of the heart expresses itself involuntarily as in the burst of song, dance, and rhythmic movement of the body. Back to Shekel. Now we're on the ritual floor upstairs, and the drums are playing, and the ancestors and the deities are possessing, and the hearts are loosening up and opening up your will, and the obtruding emotions are falling away. That is what we're talking about here. Regulating the emotional tensions with ritual, right? With the song, with the drum, with the trance, with the music, with the incense, right? Yeah, work in the spirit. From back to the text. From immemorial times, the inspiring effect of the invisible sound that moves all hearts. Back to shekel. Now the word comes in, the invisible sound. If you get a good book on Hindu yoga, you'll find that there are 4 levels of sound. There is gross sound, and then there are subtle levels of sound. Because you can chant mentally and still possess a deity. Or shall we say that when you pronounce a sound, that energy is just not simply manifest on the level of hearing. The energies that have been set in motion are working also on other levels, because everything has its subtler counterparts. Right? How about that? Because everything has its subtler counterparts. I had to do that so you get it. Right? So here it speaks about the inspiring. The word inspiring has been explained before. Okay? It means to be inspirited, to be caught up by the spirit, the effect of invisible sound. This is how you master I Ching. You have to read slowly. Sometimes you have to read like people who don't know how to read. You read the inspiring and you stop and close the book and you think and meditate on that. I say that all the time when I'm talking about how I read the Meduna Tear. Yeah, man, it's true. You have to read until you like when you don't know something, you gotta put the book down. Go to sleep, right? Now I know how to meditate. I can meditate on it, right? But it was like, let me do the dishes, let me go talk on the phone for 3 hours and come back to this book. You know what I'm saying? It was, stop, do something else, and when you have some level of neutrality, some level of clarity, you can go pick that book up and get some meaning from what you just read, right? You read the inspiring and you stop and you close the book. You think and meditate on that. Now you have the meaning of that now you have the meaning of that. You continue. Effect of invisible sound. Wait, stop, meditate on that. What does that mean? Why don't you understand the I Ching? Because you speed read the passage and then you say shekel to shekel. Can you interpret this reading for me? Sometimes I read a word or a phrase at a time and ask, what does this phrase mean? What does this mean by invisible sound? It's said about the rhythmic movement of the body, the enthusiasm of the heart. And we know that Meneb, a stable heart, is where all things are controlled from. That is the center. The center of all movement is the heart itself. So that we know that this dance is not just boogie. I love the way he talks. It's not just boogie. This is the dance that opens you up to the gods. And the song is not just simply any song. This is those combinations of sounds that you have that have the power to open up psychic centers, rhythms that open you up, right? So all words are not words with meaning. Some words are words that create an effect within you. Like, he uses that all the time. It's a good one. It's a good one. Another good one is, you're trying to get to the center. You're saying, You gotta dig that. That's deep stuff, man. You know what I mean? There's no reason why people should be scared of mantras. You know what I'm saying? We scared of mantras because somebody told you to be scared of mantras. Bro, you really gotta watch everything you accept. You know what I mean? After you grow up from being a child, you have to evaluate the things that you were given as regular stuff by grandmoms and grandpops and moms and pops and them who, no disrespect. This is just life, you know what I mean? We know that, hey man, we didn't know everything. We don't know everything. You know what I'm saying? We grow up and we live in this world, and the world helps us to be ignorant. You know, so we didn't get the eye on this stuff to really be able to break it down. You know what I mean? But when you get a reasoning faculty that's now grown, your eye, right? You gotta put your eye on things and you gotta see it. You know what I'm saying? Other than that, you're just a child walking around, a minor, right? How about they call us minors, right? A minority. What's that? That's a child. Let me not go there. Let's do it. Right? From immemorial times, the inspiring effect of the invisible sound that moves all hearts and draws them together has mystified mankind. Rulers have made use of this natural taste for music. They elevated it and regulated it. Back to Shechem. The whole science of mantra. Back to the text. Music was looked upon as something serious and holy, designed to purify the feelings of man. Back to Shechem. Therefore, in true spiritual society, not everybody has the right to compose Plato. Foolish as he was, and in his utopia, run that back. I ain't say that right. Therefore, in true spiritual society, not everybody has the right to compose. Look at hip-hop today. Look at music today. Not everybody has the right to put pad to pen and, you know what I'm saying, and create thoughts for people to run away with now as they bop their heads and go into trance, right? Everybody shouldn't be doing that, right? Priestly individuals who know something about the psyche, who know something about society, who know something about Ma'at should be doing that, right? But they don't want to let us up in the front, right? You make music, I make music that got pushed down to here. You go to my music, my page, you get like, I got like 4 or 5 views from stuff from years ago. You know what I mean? It's comedy now. It is comedy, true indeed. You know what I mean? Because it's just life, man. You know what I mean? We live in this out here. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But this is how people are conditioned, right? And this is, you know, like, yeah, I mean, the powers that be don't want me to, hey, look, some of y'all heard my raps. Y'all don't want me talking. You know who I'm talking to, you know what I mean? I'm spitting the truth, you know what I mean? But anyway, let me not talk about me. This ain't about me. All right. Therefore, in true spiritual society, not everybody has the right to compose. Plato, foolish as he was in his utopia, would want to ban all poets and musicians. That's because he saw that music has the power to steal the hearts of men. But he wanted to ban all poets and musicians from his utopia because he did not know the secrets of how to write this music. In an African society, people do not have the right to be composers or poets or whatever because these are powerful forms of art. Art originally did not mean what it means today, creativity or whatever. Art in the ancient times meant the science of manipulating the spirits of men. Run that back. Art in ancient times meant the science of manipulating the spirits of men through sound and ideas. Yo. Alright. Art is how you organize shapes, colors, sounds, music, etc. to manipulate and control those forces that control the behavior of people. I said it. You want to end crime? Play classical music on all the corners where you got riffraff. You end crime. You end crime because, see, or maybe you won't end crime, but it will leave that area. And they could do it. You could put a technology, the same way you got a technology that shines a light on 24/7 or 8 hours of the day or whatever it may be, 16 hours of the day. You could place a musical thing, right, that's somewhere within that light even, right, and plays classical music or plays, you know, some type of mantra, something, it's called mantra. Let me not even say that in societal terms. But yeah, that plays classical music. And now what happens is the people who are thinking with their dark deceased nature, right, or their wajet nekebet kind of, electromagnetic, vibrational, instinctual stuff, right, they're going to be influenced by that to either do something different or get away from that area. That's what's going to happen. It's just how it works. It's how music plays on the spirit. You know what I mean? All right. Art is how you organize shapes, colors, sounds, music, etc. to manipulate and control those forces that control the behavior of people. You are constantly being tossed here and there by an artist, right, who are just simply writing music following their own whim. The European comes and finds Kemet art, and he speaks about the lack of creativity of the Kemet artists, because for thousands of years, Kemet artists followed a rigid canon, meaning a law that governed art, and nobody dared deviate from that canon until some idiot Greek Ptolemy. Hey, keep it real, man. Look, we ain't pulling no punches. Called himself Pharaoh, and then changed the canon itself, and set up their own system. And then eventually you have Romanticism, right? Roman, right? And Impressionism, and all kinds of crazy things keeping in pace with the craziness of the world. So he's speaking about, I don't know if he'll speak about it here, but you understand that the when you see the kind of two-dimensional images in ancient Kemet, where you have a person and he's faced this way and he has his left foot this way and it looks like this, right? All of that's technology. All of that is someone communicating to you the side of the brain, or the parasympathetic system versus the sympathetic system that you should be dealing with, right? The left foot is significant, the right foot is significant, the face of direction is significant. So, now you have these, art, quote unquote, evolves, right? And you have, three-dimensional representation of things that look pretty but don't necessarily communicate to you that level of the science, right? So, yeah, yeah. Anyway, y'all can peep that out if you want. Back to the text. Art and music was looked upon as something serious and holy, designed to purify the feelings of men. Back to Shekel. And I must say, not only music, but in the graphic arts, yantras, etc. The counterpart of music are yantras. Counterpart of mantras or yantras, right? Colors and forms that have a power to evoke and manipulate the feelings of men. Back to Shekel. It fell to music and art to glorify the virtues of heroes / deities, right? Back to Shekel. Don't forget that if you study mythology, you find that the original heroes were the deities. Men become heroes later after they are exemplified by the gods upon the earth. As a matter of fact, the word hero is heru, the air, right? That's the word, that's where the word comes from. As a matter of fact, the German Hermann, H-E-I-R, man, was the name that was given to these people, or these group of Vikings, by the people of Kemet, because these people were quite ferocious in battle and really were invincible against the Kemetian armies in that northern part of the world. Pardon. That was truth, right? When the Kemetian armies came up to that what is now called Germany. That's deep. So Germany, German, is Herman or Heru man, right? Based on the fighting will, right? they could not cope with these Vikings who we bestowed upon their name, Hairman, Hair people, the people of Heru, right? For fighting, for the fighting suit. That's deep. That's deep. But they called themselves something else before, Visigoths. But I want you to understand here that it would be to glorify, but I want you to understand here that it should be to glorify the virtues of the deities, to worship the deities and ancestors. Alright, back to the text. And thus to construct a bridge to the world of the unseen. Back to Shechem. Here we are chanting to the deities and to the ancestors to construct a bridge to the world of the unseen. But basically here, the heroes are our ancestors, not any and every deceased, but those men on earth who exemplified divine law on earth, the Shepsu, who, as we have taught in the society, serve to help us come back to harmony, back in harmony with the deities. Working with the deity is no easy task. You need inside human helpers. You need helpers on the other side to help you work in harmony with the deity. It is, and this is what the ancestors provide. These are the real heroes. So the Shepsu are those ancestors who live divine law upon the earth, just not simply any and every deceased. Right? The Shepsu are those ancestors who live divine law upon the earth, just not simply any and every deceased. Or just not simply those who perform heroic deeds. There have been many who have performed heroic deeds but knew nothing about divine law. It is not the same thing. So let's get that straight. Back to the text. In the temple, men draw near to God with music and pantomimes. This is all in the Judgement, right? Okay, back to Shechem. Now the pantomimes are not simply any of the the pantomimes are not simply any that a Valentino or somebody who choreographed movements, right? A pantomime, one hand evolves certain movements of the body, involves. Oh my gosh. Hold on, let me pause. Alright, we're going to get this right, because we're supposed to, right? Look. A pantomime, on one hand, involves certain movements of the body that brings you into relationship with certain occult forces, called mudras, mudra. We are talking about also, pantomime corresponds also to the reenactment of mythologies that correspond to particular deities. And it says, out of text, right? Out of the latter, the theater developed. Talking about pantomimes, music. Talking about the shows that had their origin in tributes to deities or workings of body movements which invoked deities, right? Because you gotta remember, all this stuff is in here. The deities are in here. You know, as above, so below. So you have come all the way from reenacting the sorrows of Aset and the death of Osir to such things as violence, soap operas, etc. Back to the text. Religious feelings for the creator of the world was united with the most sacred of human feelings, that of reverence for the ancestors. The ancestors were invited to these divine services as guests of the ruler of heaven, meaning Osir, and as representatives of humanity in the higher regions. Right? Speaking about the ancestors, they are representatives of humanity. So they're like the intermediaries, right? You know, deities deal with us through some of the ancestors. Sometimes the deities deal directly, but like he was saying, sometimes you need an ancestor to show you how to live when you're working with a deity, to show you what to do, what not to do. This uniting of the human past with the divinity in solemn moments of religious inspiration established the bond between God and man. The ruler who reversed the divinity in revering his ancestors, the ruler who revered the divinity in revering his ancestors became thereby the Son of Heaven, in whom the heavenly and earthly world met in mystical contact. All right? These ideas are the final consummation of Chinese culture. Confucius said about the great sacrifice at which these rites were performed. He who could wholly comprehend this sacrifice could rule the world. And this is cut off, I can't see it. As though it in his hand. Rule the world as though it something in his hand. Right? Rule the world as if it was in his hand. Something like that. Couldn't really see it because it was cut off. Alright. This is the potential that you come face to face with every full moon. You are learning how to establish this union. That is what we have said to you before. Why haven't black people in this country, have been able to get their stuff really together again? Because they have not been able to truly come back to that way of life where they communicate with the ancestors and the deities. They have become Christians, they have become socialists, they have become capitalists, they have become worshippers of towers of ivory, or whatever it is that the white man has taught us is supposed to be the way. Instead of learning, and I'm not saying that there is no room for academics and finances, etc. Yes, those are the inert spirit, those are the inert that the spirit works with. That's what we are, the inert things that the spirit works with. They have their place, but don't try to make that be the guide of your life, because these things have no dynamics in them, no dynamism. They are inert things that the spirit will work with. So, if you want to accomplish things, many of you are here learning, and maybe the Osiris Society will fall apart 2 or 3 years from now, but out of this experience, and a handful of you, out of this experience, a handful of you might come out with those skills, or with the skills to set the world on fire into a brand new world through the skills that you have received to unite others through this whole thing. Because this is what we are teaching you how to do. How to make contact with your ancestors, with the deities. All right. How many of you have received the 16th hexagram sometime in your life? Did you go to the 5th floor and with those and sit with some drummers, or sit in your room and get possessed? Because this is what you are being told to do. You have to awaken, strengthen that energy, right? You have come close with the deity. You have to become intoxicated with the energies and the power of the deities within your being. And you commune with the ancestor to accomplish that which you consulted upon. That is the meaning of the council. Otherwise, you read the hexagram, you say you understand, close the book, and you went on about your business, and the thing fell apart. Because you don't understand that every hexagram is work. It is not information. You come to the I Ching to find out what to do, what not to do. You have to break that habit. You still come to the Yi to know. No. You must come to the Yi to set out the work on that which will enable you to accomplish your goal, or for you to desist from desiring that. Spiritual technology, folks. Real stuff. Yeah, man. Oh, man. The thought came, when will we get back to that? And then the thought came, I don't want to say it because I want to solidify it. It's rough. Anyway, the lines. We go to the lines. To the text. 6 in the beginning. Enthusiasm that expresses itself brings misfortune. Pardon me. A man in an inferior position has aristocratic connections about which he boasts enthusiastically. This arrogance inevitably invites misfortune. Enthusiasm should never be an egotistic emotion. It is justified only when it is a general feeling that unites one with others. To Shekel. Here the author deviated from the path a bit. It should be egotistic enthusiasm that expresses itself brings misfortune. Here your desire is a selfish one. Here the forces moving you is to attain something of an egotistical nature. What you want is for you. If it is something that is going to bring about unity, blessings to the group, then it can express itself. So when you get this line and you sit down and you figure out, can I improve others? If you can, then fine. If you can't, then drop it. When you get this line, right? Interesting, right? So he's talking about, this is the egotistic boasting about someone's personal thing that they want to do. Not so much, and it's misfortune associated with that boasting. Why? Because it's something that an individual wants to do for self and not for the whole, right? So that's why it's misfortune, because it's just empty boasting now, right? That's what's at that first line, right? It's just lots of times you get at the first line, this is when you got people who name drop, right? Or you name drop situations. I did this and I'll do that and I'm with this person over here and it's look at me thing. You know what I mean? That's true at that first line. 6 in the second place. Firm as a rock, not a whole day. Perseverance brings good fortune. Firm as a rock. Back to the shekel. Firm as a rock, not a whole day. There are some of you who are enthusiastic one day. I've met people who are supposed to do something, then they get it 3 or 4 days, and then right back. I've met some people who are supposed to do something. They did it 3 or 4 days, and then the next day it fell apart, and say, well, I did it yesterday and the day before. They don't understand that perseverance here is the key. Back to the text. This describes a person who does not allow himself to be misled by any illusions. While others are letting themselves be dazzled by enthusiasm, he recognizes with perfect clarity the first signs of the time. Thus, he neither flatters those above nor neglects those beneath him. He is as firm as a rock. When the first sign of discord appears, he knows the right moment for withdrawing and does not delay even for a whole day. Perseverance in such conduct will bring good fortune. Confucius says about this line, to know the seeds, that is divine indeed. In his association with those above him, the superior man does not flatter. In his association with those beneath him, he is not arrogant. For he knows the seeds. The seeds are the first imperceptible beginnings of movement. The first trace of good fortune or misfortune, in parentheses, that sows itself, or that shows itself, I think that's supposed to be. The superior man perceives the seeds and immediately takes action. He does not wait even a whole day. In the Book of Changes, it is said, firm as a rock, not a whole day. Perseverance brings good fortune. Firm as a rock, what need of the whole day? The judgment can be known. The superior man knows what is hidden and what is evident. He knows weakness and he knows strength as well. Hence the Marias look up to him. Information, okay, I don't know what the first word of that is, but the next word is information here that one must, maybe the information says that one must learn to discover the seeds of things. Okay, so I'm back to a point where it's bad cutoffs. This whole page is going to be funny cutoffs, so y'all got to bear with me. So, information says here that one must learn to discover the seeds of things. Some not be led by general enthusiasm. Okay, not sure what that was, right? There are a lot of people, kind mind, who say, yes, we are going to do so and so. We are going to do it. You are being told here, don't let that be the guide for you getting into it. Let's take a look at Sherelle, Chu and Sherelle on that line. Right? First he was reading from the Wilhelm book, reading from Chu and Sherelle. The text, stable as a rock, not for a whole day. Righteous perseverance brings good fortune. Don't forget the qualifications in with this book. To the text. Persons with this controlling line ought to, right, he emphasizes, be wise and discriminating, right, because the text says persons with this controlling line are wise and discriminating. And I guess, it's not really always the case. So it's saying that you ought to be. It's telling you the way, he's telling you a correction that this is how you ought to be. This is an instruction. It's not saying that you're going to be, because it's not always the case. Wise and discriminating. Back to the text. Following the golden mean, stable and steadfast in their goals and purposes. These persons will express their nobility through lasting creativity, writing influential books of music, painting memorable works of art, creating poetry, etc. Something the author did not comprehend. We have explained what kind of music we are speaking about. Okay, back to the text. The words "not for a whole day" are symbolic of these persons never reaching the end of their capacity. Their working in this manner for the right reasons will result in good fortune. To Shekel. Not for a whole day are symbolized or symbolic of these persons never reaching the end of their capacity. Means that once you have started to do something, you must persevere to the very end. Back to the text. Most auspicious, he will be active, quick-witted, and communicative. He will be diligent in all matters, especially in the pursuit of virtue. He will live by the golden mean. He will have stable character and disposition, unmoved by riches and poverty or temptations. He will be a noble and will achieve fame. Alright, back to Shechem. Something, the most important thing, is unmoved by temptation and the general intoxication, something, the general enthusiasm. Okay. See, this is where you can't be a robot about things. You gotta employ the right mind, right? The right brain to kind of fill in when you got stuff that's cut off, right? You know what I mean? So that's what we're doing. Alright, back to the text. Least auspicious, right? That was for the most auspicious. Least auspicious, he will also be a person of good character and attain good fortune through modest accomplishments. Wilhelm, 6th in the 3rd place, right? Means enthusiasm that looks upward creates remorse. Hesitation brings remorse. If a man hesitates too long, this also will bring remorse. The right moment for approach must be seized. Only then will he do the right thing. Back to shekel. The key here is the right moment for approach must be seized by seizing the right moment. In other words, if you hesitate on one hand and on the other hand jump into things too quickly. So here, the author is dealing with the dynamics of how people get into things, that enthusiasm that drives you into things. The author is saying that it is not enough to follow the general intoxication, those little feelings, because enthusiasm is something that is infective. Energies are transferable, right? Meaning transfer, right? Contagious, right? That is the purpose of the group ritual. People sit down and chant by themselves, nothing ever happens. And they come to the ritual and they get a contact high instantly. Those energies are transferable. They are infectious. So the second line warns you about jumping into something because you have become infected by the general sentiment. I think he means the third line. Right? Learn to see the line, look to the omens. This person is holding back, looking, etc., and is self-reliant. No, he wasn't, right? No typo, right? Or no slip up. In the third line, this man lacks the kind of self-reliance and looks toward others, right? So the oracle is saying here, just make sure that when you lack the ability to see the seeds for yourself, then do not be too hasty and do not hesitate too long. You must follow a leader. 9 in the 4th place. Now, usually in hexagrams, in the 6th line, the leader of the hexagram is usually the 5th line, and then sometimes the 2nd line because of the relationship that the 5th line and the 2nd line have with each other. In this line, because you have the preponderance of yin lines on the bottom going in that direction, you have one yang line and 2 yin lines above it, right? Then this would be the leader of this particular hexagram, the 4th place, position of the minister, right? So to the text, 9 in the 4th place, the source of enthusiasm. This is the sage, the minister, the juju man, who got the people into chanting and dancing and possessing the ancestors and the deities and such things. He achieves great things. Back to the text. He achieves great things, doubt not. You gather friends around you like a hair class gathers hair. So the source of, back to shekel. So the source of enthusiasm is the ritual leader, the person who has the ability to put you in touch with the ancestors, the deities, etc. That is what is doubt. That is why it says doubt not. This is the right way. Back to the text. This describes a man who is able to awaken enthusiasm through his own sureness and freedom from hesitation. Back to shekel. No, the oracle explained that earlier. It is through rituals. Yes, that person will be sure and unhesitate. I guess that is a typo. Yes, that person will be sure and unhesitant, but he awakens it through the rituals. Right? He attracts people because he has no doubts and is wholly sincere. Owing to his confidence in them, he wins their enthusiastic cooperation and attains success. Just as a class draws in the hair together and holds it, so he draws men together by the support he gives them. Back to shekel. These are additional counsels to such a man. Again, if you got this line where you must play that part, then you know that the real motive force behind you are your rituals. Suppose you get this line concerning something you must do with your boss. Don't invite your boss to your home and say, have a meditation. You go home and do your thing. Right? Okay, period. You go home and do your thing. Period. Right? 6 in the 5th place to the text. Persistently ill and does not die. Here, enthusiasm is obstructed. A man is under constant pressure, which prevents him from breathing freely. However, this pressure has its advantage. It prevents him from consuming his powers in empty enthusiasm. To Shechem, meaning that you are striving for things that will not be achieved. To the text, thus constant pressure can actually serve to keep one alive. Back to Shechem. This line has all kinds of applications that have been experienced in many situations. It could mean a person who is chronically ill but will not die. I've seen that all the time. Or it could be a situation that's messed up. I'm sure he's going to speak about that. Let me shut up. It could mean a person who is chronically ill but does not die. It could mean a relationship that is chronically ill but will not die, meaning any separation. It could mean anything, a business that remains chronically ill but will never go out of business, etc. But the cause here is that the enthusiasm is the energy, the forces that will enable you to move on to something are obstructed. This line requires ritual to remove the obstruction. The oracle says also that if you cannot do the ritual, keeping this man constantly under pressure, that if you cannot do the ritual, keeping this man constantly under pressure. Okay? Let's say that this man here will not do his rituals. So I say, what is the matter with you? Every time I see him, constantly be on his case so that he is constantly under pressure. That keeps his empty enthusiasm and his wayward forces from achieving their goals and from him consuming himself. So that constant pressure keeps him from grieving to stay alive. It's real stuff, when you have, juju workers, right? People who, for whatever immaturities or insecurities, right? They decide that this person over here is somebody that they want to hinder because they have learned some techniques or, whatever of how to invoke some demonic forces or whatever. And so, they keep this person busy or under constant pressure, right? This is where that line would also apply, right? Where someone is keeping someone from doing what they have to do, or that they're supposed to do through the act of creating distractions, stuff like that. Right. Top line, deluded enthusiasm, the text. But if after completion one changes, there is no blame. It is a bad thing for a man to let himself be deluded by enthusiasm. This is again here that the enthusiasm has nothing real behind it, or striving, craving for, desiring the wrong things, things unobtainable, or things that are harmful. To the text, but if this delusion has run its course, and he is capable of changing, he is freed of error. A sober awakening from false enthusiasm is quite possible and very favorable. To the text, let's take a look at Chu and Sherelle on this hexagram. At line 3, which in Wilhelm says that this person lacks self-reliance, Chu and Sherelle give a slightly different version. To the text, line 3, Chu and Sherelle. To gaze enviously brings regret. Delayed action brings remorse. Line 3, a weak line in the wrong place. Back to Shekel. That line should have been a yang line inside of a yin line. That's why it says a weak line in the wrong place. Meaning that each place within the hexagram has places of its most optimum energy versus least, right? Some lines, it's better to have a yin line there, and other lines, it's better to have a yang line there for the position of the line, for what the line is describing about the circumstance, right? And where the energy should be in that circumstance. So you might pull a weak line where it should be, a hexagram that has a weak line. It's informing you of something about that, right? Y'all get it. Right? Weak line in the wrong place. back to the text. Okay. So line 3, a weak line in the wrong place, look to its strong neighbor, line 4, for care and support. He is weak and envious and would like to be provided for as if he were still a child. These characteristics are predominant in persons having this controlling line. They like possessions, status, and respect, but are unwilling to exert the necessary energy to attain them. They would like to have these things presented to them. Additionally, they make efforts to avoid responsibility while seeking love, pity, and care from others. They do not understand the principle that to give is to receive. Procrastination and failure to take action in a timely manner brings remorse. To check. I have received this line on certain people where it painted the exact picture of what these people were doing. Exactly what it is saying in this book here, and at other times it did not. The Wilhelm is more it. Okay? So he's giving you some direction in terms of that. This is an example of how persons that get this line may behave. I don't want you to take it literally as everybody who gets this line, but you will find oftentimes, not always, but you'll find that sometimes a person might be a person who is not going to take care of himself, etc. But it may just simply be a person who is procrastinating to join up. It could just simply be that, or just simply mean that. It could mean a person who is looking up to the leader, who is doesn't necessarily want to provide for himself, but one who is still in that position that he needs to look up to the leader. But sometimes it will also mean somebody who wants without paying the price for that which they are supposed to get, for not carrying their share of it. So, with proper qualification, the true and Shirel is very useful. Alright? Line 4, true and Shirel. From the fountain, great results accumulate. Be confident. Friends readily gather round. Meaning that if you do the work of the 4th line, which was given to you earlier in the Judgment, meaning you do the rituals, be confident, friends will gather around. That is what is left out in this text. It means for you to do your rituals and you do them well and give Sebek what he needs at the crossroads, then be confident, friends will gather around. You will attract the help and friends you need. You will set armies marching. You will unify the people. Not through your words, but through your occult force, the ancestors, the deities. Back to the text. The advice, guidance, example, and control of a true, dynamic, and communicative leader are the fountain from which great results can be achieved and blessings derived. Every age in history develops such persons when they are needed. It should be remembered here that the I Ching is designed for superior persons as a guide to self-development. Back to shuffle. That is very hard statement, because many people use the I Ching who are not ready for I Ching. Many people who use the I Ching have to grow towards the Yi. I want you to make that very clear, because people have said to me, well, Shekum, if y'all had the I Ching, how come these people over here fail? And they don't recognize the difference between the talent, the intent, the purpose of the society, the intent of the society's process, as opposed to the people who come to the society. Meaning that our intent is to provide you with the proper type of guidance, the proper type of material to guide you. But not everybody who comes to us is ready to utilize that in a successful way in any given moment. The people have to grow gradually to the point where they can make proper use of it. So if that XYZ over here fails, it doesn't mean that the society is not ready or together or whatever. It means that the people need to grow towards it. Do you understand? This is very, very important because many of you have heard criticisms of the SRSS society, and you will hear them because there are always detractors from wherever you go. Right? There will always be people who say that they have seen SRSS society members run to other places because they need help and so. Some other groups offer what seems to be an easier way to get what you want in life. Of course, this is not true. Of course, this is not true. Nothing can be gotten without that spiritual work, and it gets cut off. You try and decipher the work from the nothing, right? Don't live you, don't give you that something, don't give you, can't get it. We tell you this is hard, period. Not for the sake of keeping you here by watering it down or say it's easy. We are going to tell you like it is. That's it. But most people have grown towards I Ching. Grow towards the rituals of a sunset. That's life. I can't change that. You can't change that. Otherwise, it will not be what it is. And then again, the fourth line says, back to the text, every age develops such persons when they are needed. Back to the Hexagram. Meaning, the subject of the fourth line. But again, that is speaking on a grand scale. But this line also means in any and every one of you who have learned to do a ritual successfully. Meaning that this line is telling you that if you have to go to the Oracle of Tehuti and find out which deity is going to help you get your thing together, now you become the subject of the fourth line. You do your ritual, and then you gather those around you. You help them, and you develop in the enthusiasm or whatever, to whatever degree you can, etc. So this line is at once speaking about a leader of men, but at the same time, it is speaking about everybody who uses the same technique. Make sure that you have that straight. So if you get this line, don't come in here the next day transfigured, talking about you are a great leader who has come back, etc. Oh, it's so funny. I've come back. I want to warn you because I have had that happen several times when folks have come to me and said that I have received this reading here and I am the great so-and-so. And I say, okay, you can teach some classes. And they go, hey, hold up. It says here, back to the text, it can, however, reflect and symbolize others who are not striving for the good of humanity. Among those are leaders who are egotistical, factional, and selfish. These are equally discernible. Back to Shepherd. Again, the author messed himself up here. He started out speaking about some type of leader who uses religious forces, rituals, mantras, etc. That was the central theme of the general theme of leaders. Something like that. That was the central theme of the general theme, leaders. The central theme were those leaders who use religious forces, etc. Then he forgot about his central theme and went on to speak about different types of leaders. He substituted the central theme and went on to speak about Well, there are egotistical leaders and so on. And confuse the meaning of the fourth line. The subject of the fourth line is not an egotistical leader, and so on, because the deities and ancestors will not allow that to be. And you'll find that that information does not come across in the Wellnau. All right. Whoa, we are an hour and 30 minutes in, and we ain't no time soon done. All right. Yeah. Okay. So let me try and keep on going here. All leaders have difficulties at one time or another, and conditions are never smooth for a great leader. Now that is true, says Shepherd. Back to the text. In fact, it is the manner in which they overcome impediments that makes for their greatness. Back to Shepherd. But the leader of the fourth line is the type of leader that overcomes impediments through rituals. So that statement is meaningless. The author here does not tie in that strong governing line or constituting line with the judgment, which he should have done. Back to the text. Every leader probably wavers on occasion when difficulties are truly immense. Back to Shechem. But that negates what he said about the confidence. When you are working with the ancestors and the deities, you never waver because you run into impediments. You might run into impediments in the sense that the forces just don't come and sweep everything out of your way. Things work in stages. It is moving at 50 RPMs and meets some opposition and slows down to 10 RPMs, but it keeps moving. It moves away. Then it moves at 60 RPMs, but you do not waver. Then it says, the text, but by being confident, he is able to carry out his will and gathers others spontaneously to him. Everybody likes a winner, and those depicted here are winners. The author here is very modern in his approach to writing and loses track of the actual judgment. Line 5 is very much like the other text. Line 6, the text. Confused, wasted efforts, can take place, no blame. Meaning that if your enthusiasm to accomplish something is not based on what is right, cosmogony, etc., if you don't have the power of the deities behind you, then there can be confused, wasted efforts. That's the meaning here. Let's take a look at the complement hexagram, hexagram 9. It is called the taming power of the small. The next to the last sentence says here, Wilhelm. The text, the hexagram represents the configuration of circumstances in which a strong element is temporarily held in leash by a weak element. It is only through gentleness that this can have a successful outcome. To Shechem, when you get this hexagram, something that is gentle in nature is what will bring you success. Gentleness, meaning that which is strong, will enable you to succeed in this situation. What? Gentleness meeting that which is strong will enable you to succeed in this situation. Because it is we're talking about the 9th hexagram here, the complement of the 16th. Because it is very easy for many people to meet with strength that which comes to them strongly. And its complement hexagram, we had one line, the 4th line, which was a strong line leading 5 weak lines. So where everyone was weak, the minister was strong, the strongest of them all, so he was the leader. Here we have the complementary situation where one weak line, again, in the place of the minister, the 4th line, holding 5 strong lines in check. So here we have the other side of the minister now. And if that weak line can hold 5 strong lines in check, then there is now gentleness and not weakness. That's the secret of Tai Chi or Jiu-Jitsu, where you don't try to oppose things, but you have to use it. Use that which you are required in that situation. The amount of force, be it no force, right? Right, so it's like movements sometimes within certain martial arts, it's about allowing the other to move, you're creating a result by having the other movement, right? Where he doing the yang, you doing the yin, and you throw him off. You know what I mean? Now you can do your yang thing and beat him up. I did that before. Alright, you're saying about me, the judgment, the taming power of the small has success. Okay, so I think what we're doing here is we're going into the next hexagram, which is the which is the 9th. Okay, right, yeah. All right, that's what's happening here. He went from the 16 to the 9, right? But we ain't gonna do that. We ain't got the time. I love it when I rhyme. Alright, but yeah, so we will come back. You know how we do, right? Oh no, we did the 9th already. We already did the 9th hexagram, right? So y'all can go to the 9 and look that up. But yeah, alright, so we finished this for now, right? Yeah, man. Yeah, so that was good. That was good, man. That was a good working of that hexagram, man. His 16th hexagram is deep. You know what I mean? It's a deep hexagram, man. It'll tell you a lot if you get involved in your rituals. Absolutely. All right, so with that, we're going to say peace and love, and we're going to see y'all next time. Peace.